Maplewood was a quaint little town, known for its charming streets lined with maple trees that turned brilliant shades of red and gold in the fall. But there was one house on Elm Street that no one spoke about, a crumbling old mansion that had been abandoned for years. It was said to be cursed, haunted by a ghostly figure that only appeared during the Halloween season. The figure was known as the Smiling Mask. The legend told of a young girl named Clara who had lived in the mansion with her parents many years ago. Clara loved Halloween, especially the costumes. She was particularly fond of a porcelain mask her mother had given her, a delicate piece with painted red lips stretched into a wide, cheerful smile. She wore it every Halloween, pairing it with a simple dress that made her look like a living doll. One Halloween night, tragedy struck. Clara wandered off into the woods behind the mansion and never returned. Her parents searched for her desperately, but all they found was the mask lying in the dirt, its painted smile now cracked and faded. Distraught, they left the town, and the mansion fell into disrepair. As the years passed, people began to see a figure in the house's windows, a young girl wearing a cracked, smiling mask. One brisk October evening, a group of teenagers, Molly, Lucas, Avery, and Ben, decided to investigate the mansion. They had heard the stories about the smiling mask, but they were skeptical. It was just a ghost story, they told themselves, something to scare little kids on Halloween. They gathered outside the mansion, the air thick with the scent of decaying leaves. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the old house. Its windows were broken, and the front door hung slightly ajar, creaking in the breeze. "Are we really doing this?" Molly asked, her voice shaky. "Come on, it's just an old house," Lucas replied, though he didn't sound as confident as he wanted to. "Let's just go in, look around, and then we can leave," Ben suggested. Avery nodded, and the four of them pushed open the door and stepped inside. The interior was as decayed as the exterior. Dust covered every surface, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling like tattered curtains. The only light came from their flashlights, casting eerie beams that flickered with each movement. As they explored the house, a sense of unease settled over them. The air felt heavy, oppressive, and every creak of the floorboards seemed unnaturally loud. They moved through the rooms, finding nothing but old furniture and the remnants of a life long forgotten. "I don't like this," Avery whispered. "Let's go." But before they could leave, Molly noticed something on the floor in the hallway, a faint trail of what looked like dried mud leading to a closed door at the end. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she approached the door, her flashlight shaking slightly in her hand. "Molly, don't," Lucas warned, but she was already reaching for the doorknob. The door creaked open to reveal a small, dusty room. In the center of the room stood a single chair, and on that chair was a porcelain mask. It was the same mask from the stories, its once bright smile now cracked and faded, just as the legend described. Molly stared at it, a chill running down her spine. This is it," she whispered. As if in response, the temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and the air filled with the scent of rotting wood. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to grow darker, and the sound of soft footsteps echoed in the hallway behind them. "Did you hear that?" Ben asked, his voice trembling. Before anyone could respond, the door slammed shut, plunging them into darkness. Their flashlights flickered, then died, leaving them in total blackness. Panic set in as they fumbled for the door, trying to open it, but it wouldn't budge. The room felt like it was closing in on them, the air thick with fear. Then, from the darkness, they heard it, a soft, childlike giggle, followed by the sound of footsteps slowly approaching. The friends huddled together, their breath coming in short, terrified gasps. Suddenly the door creaked open, and a faint light filtered in. Standing in the doorway was a figure, a young girl in a white dress, her face obscured by the cracked, smiling mask. She tilted her head, as if studying them, and then she giggled again, the sound echoing through the house. "Leave, or stay with me forever," she whispered, her voice barely audible, yet filled with a chilling finality. Terrified, the friends bolted for the door, shoving past the figure and racing down the hallway. As they fled the mansion, they could still hear the girl's laughter following them, growing louder and more maniacal with each step. They didn't stop running until they were far from the house, their hearts pounding in their chests. When they finally looked back, the mansion stood silently in the distance, the windows dark and empty. They never spoke of that night again, but the memory haunted them, and every Halloween they could swear they heard a faint giggle carried on the wind, reminding them of the girl with the smiling mask, who still waited in the shadows of the old mansion, eager for new friends to join her forever.